Hi, welcome to Bar Cart Bookshelf, a video series about books and the drinks they inspire. My name is Elias, and today we're talking about Gideon the Ninth. I have been looking forward to featuring this book for a long time. Really, since before Bar Cart Bookshelf even existed in the form that it does now. And the drink that we'll be making in a bonus episode for Harrow the Ninth later this week was one of the first book cocktails that I ever made. And so, with the arrival of the highly anticipated, by me and many others, NONA the Ninth, the third book in the Locked Tomb series, coming next week, I had to reread books 1 and 2. And so, I finally have the opportunity to talk about some of the premier science fantasy, space wizardry, lesbian-y, most wonderful books that we've seen here in the speculative fiction world over the last couple of years. And it all kicks off with Gideon the Ninth. Now, the popular tagline for Gideon is lesbian necromancers in space, and it certainly is that. They've got big swords and lots of bones, but it is also a really wonderfully twisty locked room mystery, and a story where you have this wonderful ensemble cast who end up trapped in a crumbling castle and are solving puzzles, and then of course people start to die, as really they should when there are necromancers around. It is tremendously fun, intellectually challenging, and the start of a saga that has gotten wider and more strange with each passing installment. So, of course, it was always going to be a book that we featured here on Bar Cart Bookshelf, and here we are at last. And as you can see, for today's drink, we are reaching for an unfamiliar, or as of yet unused tool here on Bar Cart Bookshelf, and that is the blender. You can see on the cover there, if you haven't read Gideon the Ninth, that our sort of cover character here, Gideon Nav, has got on her aviator sunglasses. She's a cool kid, delightfully earthy, and just has a real humor and crudity to her, a laid-back attitude amid some very self-serious necromancers. And so I wanted to have today's drink bring a bit of the fun of Gideon the character to the book that comes from her point of view. And we'll see the contrast later in the week when we look at Harrow the Ninth. So, without any further ado, why don't we get to making today's drink? Our drink is called the Canaan House Cooler. It's going to be a nice, frothy, chilly, kind of tropical, kind of orange drink for sitting out on the, grand parquet of a gothic castle in the middle of a all-expansive ocean on an abandoned world. Because when you're in that sort of situation, you want to kick back with something nice and fruity and refreshing. So, we will get started with some of our many juices. We've got some orange juice here. I'm going to get 2 ounces of that. You'll notice that because we're getting the blender out, we're going to be making a slightly larger drink than we usually do. But we start with our 2 ounces of orange juice. I'm going to get 2 ounces of mango nectar. That fresh tropical mango, just delicious. Good. Next, we're going to get 1.5 ounces of lime juice. It's going to brighten things up in contrast with the sort of sweeter notes of our other ingredients, but not too tart, just 1.5 ounces. Wonderful. Next, the real sweetener, passion fruit syrup. A favorite ingredient of ours here, and when you see the relationship between Gideon and her necromancer, Harrowhark, you'll certainly agree that passion plays a big role in it, whether it's a positive passion or an antagonistic passion. They're certainly people who feel very strongly towards each other in ways that are really marvelously explored over the course of the book. And we are going to get a full 2 ounces of that passion fruit in there. Wonderful, magical ingredient that makes everything taste tropical. Just delicious. Excellent. Now, as I've said, they are in space, and one of the things that we see a lot, especially with the ninth house, this region of space that and planet that Gideon and Harrow come from, they do bones, and so to bring a bit of the boniness to our Canaan House Cooler, we've got that whole milk powder that we like to use. We'll pretend it's bone powder for today, and also because they're traveling through space, we see a lot of preserved foods and a sort of distance from freshness. Again, apt when you've got necromancers raising the dead and messing all around with bones and spirits and all sorts of lovely squicky kinds of body things. We're going to get a tablespoon of the whole milk powder down in there. Wonderful. And then finally, now this is a sort of optional ingredient, our spirit today. We've got the aged rum, that cruisin' rum that we love to use in cocktails. If you wanted to, you could forego the rum and make a virgin Canaan House Cooler, and you would certainly be well within your rights to do that, and it would be delicious. But when you've had a hard time, and these folks are really going through it, it's nice to have a little splash of rum in there. And so we are going to get 3 ounces of rum into our blender. Wonderful. And if you wanted to, you could add an additional ounce. It's really up to you to do as the spirit moves you when it comes to rum, but I like the balance of a good 3 ounces there. It ends up being basically 2 cocktails. One for your cavalier and one for your necromancer. And then we're going to, before we add ice, give that a good frothing to help dissolve that whole milk powder. Excellent. Not a long time, but just enough to really incorporate the whole milk powder. We don't want a dusty cocktail. Then, get our ice. You're going to want to add about as much ice as will come sort of up above the surface of the liquid. Wonderful. You just sort of eyeball that. The wonderful thing about blender cocktails is that you can play around with the ratios a bit, and you can certainly play around with the ice. Now here, you are going to want to blend for a bit longer because, we really want to break up that ice. We want it to be just totally slushy, cold, frosty, refreshing, no sort of chewy ice pellets. And so I am going to give this a nice solid blending here. Wonderful. Oh yeah, that's looking great. Oh, and it smells so tropical too. There we go. Now, to finish things off, as I've said, drink for 2, Cavalier, Necromancer. We've got 2 glasses here. Woo. Take the blender on off, and oh yeah, you see how smooth that is, how wonderfully slushy. We'll just pour that on in. There you go. And you can set the rest aside for a little round 2 afterwards. So there you have it. That's the Canaan House Cooler in honor of Gideon the Ninth by Tamsyn Muir. Gideon the Ninth is available now. We will be talking about Book 2, Harrow the Ninth, later this week, and Book 3, Nona the Ninth, later this month. So make sure that you are subscribed so you don't miss those episodes. I've got a link to Snag Gideon down below, as well as a link to the Boston Shaker, where we get things like our passion fruit syrup or jigger, to Twitter and Instagram, where there's always a written version of today's recipe. Please try the drink. Let me know what you think. Talk to me in the comments about Gideon and the Locked Tomb, because, oh, I love these books. Hit that bell so you never miss an episode. Hit that like button. And until next time, cheers. And chili.